Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something, well, a little different.
Yeah, this one is interesting.
We are essentially reconstructing, maybe not a literal crime scene, but definitely a corporate autopsy.
I like that. A corporate autopsy.
Yeah, we're looking at a stack of documents, financial reports, crash investigations, all of it centering on one defunct company, Armavia.
And if you're listening and thinking, why should I care about an Armenian airline that stopped flying back in 2013? Just hold that thought.
Right.
Because this isn't really a story about planes.
No, it's not at all.
It's a story about post-Soviet identity. It's about the incredibly dangerous gap between ambition and reality. And honestly, it's a masterclass in how not to run a logistics business.
It's almost Shakespearean in a way. You have the rise, the hubris, the tragedy, and then the fall. So looking at our sources today, we're covering the timeline from about 1996 to 2013. We've got ownership battles, fleet data, which is a total mess, by the way.
Oh, we'll get to that.
And the official accident reports.
And the mission for this deep dive is to figure out what actually killed Armavia. Was it bad luck? Was it the Russians? Or was it just the brutal economics of trying to be a flag carrier for a small nation?
Let's start right there with that term, flag carrier, because that sets the whole psychological stage.
It does.
Armavia wasn't just a business. It was supposed to be the face of Armenia to the world.
Right. And that is a heavy, heavy burden. You have to remember the context. This is the 90s. The Soviet Union has collapsed. And every newly independent state wanted two things: a seat at the UN and their own airline. It's a sovereignty thing.
You want to see your flag on the tail fin at Heathrow or Charles de Gaulle.
Exactly. It says, we've arrived.
But Armavia's start was, well, sluggish is putting it mildly. The papers were signed in 96.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the flight logs. They didn't actually move a paying passenger until 2001. That's 5 years of just nothing.
A paper airline? They had the license, but not the metal. And when they finally did start, it was strictly regional. Flights to Russia, flights to Turkey, the easy stuff.
But the real story kicks off in 2002. This is where the plot thickens. We see a major foreign player enter the game.
That's 7 Airlines.
Which stood out in the corporate history immediately. This is a Russian giant, formerly Siberia Airlines.
Not a player.
Yeah.
And very aggressive.
So in 2002, S7 buys 50% of Armavia.
Right.
And then just a year later, 2003, they bumped that up to 68%.
So effectively, Armenia's national airline was 2/3 Russian-owned.
Yeah.
Which, if you know the geopolitics of the Caucasus, isn't that surprising?
Yeah.
But commercially, it was a fascinating move. S7 basically used Armavia as a feeder system.
Okay.
They wanted to dominate the routes between Yerevan and the major Russian cities, Moscow, Sochi. It gave Armavia stability, access to S7's maintenance, their booking systems.
But it turned them into a subsidiary, a vassal state airline.
Essentially. And for a country trying to assert its independence, that's an uncomfortable dynamic. You've got the Armenian flag on the tail, but the decisions are being made in Moscow.
Which has to explain the massive pivot in 2005. This is the first big turning point. The big brother exits the chat.
And a local entity, Mika Armenia Trading, buys out S7 completely.
Led by Mikhail Bagdasarov.
And this is crucial context. Bagdasarov was a tycoon, very well connected. Mika Trading wasn't an aviation company. They were into oil, cement, finance.
So it's the classic oligarch buys a sports team trope.
But instead of a soccer club, he bought an airline.
And now it's 100% locally owned. The timing here is wild because the previous national carrier, Armenian Airlines, had just gone bankrupt in 2003.
So Armavia just steps right into this massive vacuum. They inherited the crown.
And the strategy shifts immediately.
Oh, completely. Under S7, it was cautious, calculated. Under Bagdasarov, it was just aggressive expansion. They wanted to be the player.
The numbers back that up. I was looking at the passenger growth charts. In 2005, they moved about 513,000 people. 5 years later, 2010, they're over 800,000.
Which is huge growth for a country with a population of just under 3 million. Explosive.
But, and there's always a but, when you grow that fast, you need the infrastructure to support it. And this is where I want to talk about the fleet.
The Franken fleet.
Because when I looked at the list of aircraft they were flying, I honestly thought it was a typo.
It's a zoological garden of airplanes.
It's such a mess. Okay, let's list this out. You've got Airbus A319s and A320s. Fine. Standard workhorses.
Yep, totally normal.
Then you have Boeing 737s.
Okay, so now you need 2 different sets of pilots, 2 different sets of mechanics, 2 warehouses full of parts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then Bombardier CRJs for the short hops. And then a Yakovlev Yak-42D, a Soviet trijet for VIPs.
Don't forget they also leased ATRs at one point. It's the definition of a mixed fleet.
So why is that a problem? For the listener who doesn't run an airline, why can't you just mix and match planes like cars in a garage?
Because in aviation, complexity is the enemy of profit. It's the fastest way to burn money.
You lose all economy of scale.
Completely. Look at the most profitable airlines in history. Southwest, Ryanair, they fly one type of plane. Southwest only flies the 737.
Right.
Ryanair, mostly the 737.
Right.
Armavia was flying a Noah's Ark fleet, 2 of everything. It just suggests they were desperate for capacity, grabbing whatever leases they could find without thinking about the operational nightmare they were building.
It sounds like they were patching holes rather than building a foundation.
Yeah.
And speaking of ambition outpacing reality, we have to talk about the Los Angeles connection.
The Holy Grail.
I saw this in all the press clippings. They were obsessed with flying nonstop from Yerevan to LAX.
Of course, because of Glendale, the massive Armenian diaspora in California.
It's practically the second capital of Armenia.
The demand is there, the cultural connection is there.
Yeah.
But look at that fleet we just talked about.
They didn't have a single plane that could make that flight.
Not even close. An A320 is not getting to California from the Caucasus. You need a wide body. A Boeing 777, an Airbus A330.
But they kept promising it.
Kept promising. It was a pipe dream. It was marketing fluff to keep the public excited, but the physics just weren't on their side.
But they did try to pioneer something else. And this is probably the most interesting technical chapter of their story.
The Sukhoi Superjet.
The SSJ-100.
This is where politics and aviation collide head-on.
This was supposed to be the great Russian comeback in civil aviation, right?
That was the narrative. The Superjet was the first clean-sheet design from post-Soviet Russia. A modern fly-by-wire jet meant to compete with Embraer and Bombardier. It was Putin's pride and joy.
And Armavia decides, we'll take the first one.
Launch customer. April 21st, 2011. Armavia becomes the first airline in the world to fly the Superjet on a commercial route. Yerevan to Moscow.
Sounds like a huge PR win, first in the world. But being a launch customer is not always a good thing, is it?
It's basically being a beta tester for a multi-million-dollar machine that flies.
Okay, right.
I mean, when Singapore Airlines launches a new Airbus, they have the engineering depth to absorb the teething problems. When a small carrier like Armavia does it, it's a massive, massive risk.
And they found bugs.
They sure did. Within a year, the whole relationship imploded. They'd ordered a second jet, canceled it, then they returned the first one.
Why? They publicly cited reliability concerns. What does that mean in plain English?
It means the plane was spending too much time on the ground. Maybe it was software glitches, maybe waiting for parts. But if you're Armavia, you can't afford to have your shiny flagship plane sitting in a hangar earning $0.
It feels like there was political pressure to take that plane.
Almost certainly. It was a prestige project for Russia, and Armenia is a close strategic ally. But the economics just didn't work. It became an anchor around their neck.
So we have a chaotic fleet, a failed experiment with a prototype jet. But we can't tell the story of Armavia without stopping at the darkest moment.
No, you can't. This is the event that defines the airline's legacy, unfortunately. Flight 967.
May 3rd, 2006. An Airbus A320 flying Yerevan to Sochi.
A routine route. A short hop across the Black Sea. A flight they had done hundreds of times.
But the weather was awful. Rain, poor visibility, and the plane never made it. It crashed into the sea.
113 people died. Total hull loss.
And the investigation report, I mean, these are always hard to read, but this one is particularly frustrating.
Because the plane was fine.
That's the term CFIT, right? Controlled flight into terrain.
Correct. The engines were turning, the computer was online, the hydraulics were working. The pilots flew a perfectly healthy airplane into the water.
How does that even happen? How do you lose track of up and down so badly?
It's a psychological trap.
Yeah.
They were attempting to land in that bad weather. The tower told them visibility was below minimum, so they had to abort.
Right.
They initiated a go-around, pull up, circle back, try again.
Which is a standard maneuver.
It is, but it is high workload, it's stressful, and this is where biology betrays you. The captain likely suffered from something called somatographic illusion. Somatographic illusion. It's a sensory trick. When you accelerate quickly, like when you gun the engines for a go-around, your inner ear detects that acceleration.
Yeah.
But without visual references, remember, it's pitch black, it's raining, your brain confuses that forward acceleration with tilting backwards.
So you feel like you're doing a backflip even though you're flying straight.
Exactly. You feel like the nose is pitching up dangerously high. So what's your instinct?
Push the nose down.
You push the nose down to level off, but you were already level, so now you're diving. And that's what happened. He was making inputs that sent the plane into the sea, thinking he was saving it from a stall.
And the first officer, why didn't he stop him?
That's the other tragedy here. It's a failure of what's called crew resource management. In many post-Soviet aviation cultures at the time, the cockpit hierarchy was very steep.
The captain was God.
The captain was God. The first officer either didn't monitor the flight path effectively or was too hesitant to intervene and scream, "Captain, we are diving."
And the plane itself, the computer must have known it was too low.
Oh, it did. The GPWS, the ground proximity warning system, was screaming, "Pull UP," but in that high-stress, disoriented state, they ignored it. They were fighting their own safety systems.
God, that's just terrifying. Total sensory confusion.
It is. And even though Armavia kept growing after 2006, that crash breaks the trust. You can repaint the planes, but the locals remember. It changes the company culture from ambitious startup to crisis management.
So let's fast forward to the end. We move from the tragedy of 2006 through the Superjet fiasco. We get to 2013, and the wheels just come off.
The financial depression, as the reports call it.
It really seems like it happened overnight. One day they're flying, the next day they aren't.
Bankruptcy often looks sudden from the outside, but it's a slow rot from the inside. They'd been bleeding cash for at least 2 years.
Right.
High fuel prices were hitting everyone, but Armavia had that inefficient Noah's Ark fleet. They were burning more cash per seat. They were piling up debt with airports, with fuel suppliers.
I read the IATA clearinghouse suspended them shortly before the end.
And that's the death knell. The IATA clearinghouse is the financial circulatory system of the airline industry. It handles money between airlines and travel agents.
So when IATA kicks you out,
you can't sell tickets effectively. You're cut off from the global system.
So on March 29th, 2013, they announced bankruptcy. April 1st. April Fool's Day, ironically, operations stop.
Just like that. Gone.
Imagine the scene. You're a passenger in Paris or Moscow. You have a ticket home to Yerevan. You show up at the counter, and the lights are just off.
And because they had codeshare partners, Air France, El Al, LOT Polish, this wasn't just an Armenian problem.
Right, explain that. If I bought a ticket on Air France, how does this affect me?
Well, you might book New York to Yerevan on airfrance.com. The first leg is an Air France jet. But the second leg, Paris to Yerevan, is operated by Armavia. Suddenly, Air France has hundreds of angry passengers stuck at Charles de Gaulle with nowhere to go because their partner airline just ceased to exist. It rippled through the whole network.
It's just such a stark ending. No bailout, no government intervention for the flag carrier.
And that's the real surprise here. Usually, the government steps in. They say, "We can't let the flag fail." But the Armenian government essentially said, "This is a private company. Good luck."
They let it burn.
They let it burn. It signals a real shift. It's not just a vanity project anymore. If it doesn't make money, it dies.
So when we step back and look at this whole arc, what's the big takeaway? Is this just a story of bad management?
I think it's a story about the danger of what I'd call flag carrier syndrome.
Okay, define that.
It's the belief that because you represent a nation, you are immune to basic economics. Or maybe you try to do too much. They wanted to be a geopolitical player with the Superjet. They wanted to span the globe to LA without the right planes. They wanted to expand with a Franken fleet.
Ambition without foundation.
Exactly. Aviation is a margins game. It's actually quite boring when it's done right. It's about standardization, safety, efficiency. Armavia was exciting. It was dramatic. And in aviation, exciting usually leads to bankruptcy.
It's a sobering reminder. Next time I'm at an airport and I see a logo I don't recognize, I'm going to think about the house of cards keeping that plane in the air.
You should.
Yeah.
Behind every single ticket is a massive web of debt, leases, and geopolitical deals. We just usually don't see it until the lights go out.
Well, on that cheerful note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive, a fascinating, if tragic, look at the rise and fall of Armavia.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. We will see you on the next deep dive.